Welcome to this video on changing the dashboard's data connection string in Dashboard Viewer using the Syncfusion Dashboard Platform SDK. Consider you have created the dashboard file called server from the dashboard designer with the data from the database in the testing machine. If you want to change the data connection string to run into the production environment, you can follow the steps described in this video. As well as this feature will fit when you have database with multi-tenant support in it. You can easily change the data connection string for each user and view their data from the dashboard file hosted in PHP application. This feature can be achieved through onApply connection event API while initializing the dashboard viewer control. To do this process for non.NET applications, we should either create the WCF service or Web API application and host the application to generate the modified connection string with different server. For this demo, I am going to create WCF service to get the encrypted string and call the service from the PHP application. Now I have opened the dashboard file called server in Dashboard Designer, in which we are going to see demo to change the connection string. You can see the data source name is sample. For this demo, let's consider the source and destination data storage systems to be Microsoft SQL Server. Now edit the data source to see the connection string configuration. You can see that it holds the source Microsoft SQL Server's configuration details. Let's change these connection details through the WPF service and call it from the PHP application so that connecting to the destination machine's Microsoft SQL Server will not affect the connection details in the dashboard file. Let me run the WCF application now. Using the getModifiedConnectionString method, I have created the encrypted connection string with different server name. Now I am going to call this method hosted in WCF service from the PHP application and launch it in the web browser. Now the dashboard file is updated with the modified server name after changing the connection string. You can see the difference in the dashboard data by comparing with the dashboard file and application result. Let's see how this can be achieved with step-by-step process for creating WCF service and PHP application. Ensure that you have installed Dashboard Platform SDK in your development machine. To know more about download and installation part of Syncfusion Dashboard Platform SDK, please look at the Installing Syncfusion Dashboard Platform SDK available in the playlist. Let us create a new WCF service project using Microsoft Visual Studio Development Environment. Now the application has been created and I am going to remove the default methods which is not needed for us. It is important to encrypt the connection string information while passing it from server to client, so we need to add the syncfusion.dashboard.encryption assembly manually from the precompiled assemblies folder. You can find the precompiled assemblies folder from the local app data location and use your compatible version of .NET Framework. Ensure to add newtonsoft.json assembly with version 10 or higher to the application, since the Syncfusion.dashboard encryption assembly uses version 10. Now Syncfusion.dashboard.encryption and newtonsoft.json libraries has been included in the project. I am going to declare the method called getModifiedConnectionString inside the iService1 interface. Let's define this method in Service1 class. I have added code to generate an encrypted connection string in getModifiedConnectionString method. To generate an encrypted connection string with a new server for the destination data storage, I have created an object called Dashboard Crypto Provider class and then set the encryption type to Advanced Encryption Standard. Then I have created an object for the connection class and initialized its data sources property with a list of data sources connection string objects. Then I have created an object for connection parameters and assigned the properties authentication type, server name, username, password and database, since I have used Microsoft SQL Server as data storage. You can use other data storage also and refer the connection parameters to be passed for the corresponding data storage in the documentation. The link is available in this video description. Ensure the source and destination data storage systems are the same and the database schemas are similar. Also, ensure the user at least has the read permission in the database. Since we are going to use the SQL Server authentication, the authentication type is set as 1. For Windows authentication, set the value to 0. The Windows authentication type can be set only when the destination data storage system and this application exist in the same machine. Then I have created an object for data source connection string and set the properties for name and connection string and added to the data sources collection. The name should match the data source name in the dashboard file. Here the data source name is sample. Create a connection string generator object and call the getConnectionString method by passing the connection parameters we created. Connection provider type as SQL Server and the ODBMS type as none. If you have more data sources to change in the dashboard file, you can do this by adding respective data source connection string objects to the data sources collection. Call the doEncryption method of the dashboard crypto provider object by passing the serialized connection object and store it in the variable named modified connection. Now we have added code necessary to generate the encrypted connection string with different server name. Before running the service, we need to configure web.config file and add global active server page to allow the PHP application to utilize this WCF service. In web.config file, add the code to set the web endpoint under the system.service model section. Now create a global active server page to allow cross-origin request. I have added code in the application begin request method. This code allows PHP application to use the WCF service by allowing the cross-origin request. Let's run the service. Now the WCF service has been hosted and we have ensured that the getModifiedConnectionString method returns the proper encrypted string. Next, we will call this WCF service from the PHP application. I have already created PHP application under the demo folder with the index.php file and initialized the dashboard viewer control with the service URL and dashboard file. Here I have referred the fonts, scripts and themes from the HTML folder as well as the EJ folder under the PHP folder from the local app data location into the PHP application. The dashboard viewer initialization has the service URL and dashboard path configured in it. For this demo sample, Syncfusion Dashboard Service is hosted in IIS Express. To host the dashboard service in web servers like IIS Express, please refer to the video Deployment of Syncfusion Dashboard Service available in this playlist. Dashboard path should be accessible to the given dashboard service URL. You can create PHP application with an embedded dashboard viewer using the manual steps. For this creation, refer the videos at adding Syncfusion Dashboard Viewer into PHP application using dashboard viewer wrapper files and continue to proceed on changing the data connection string. Let's start to change the data connection string in the PHP application. Let me add the code to call the WCF service. Inside Dashboard Viewer Initialization, add a client-side event for onApply connection to apply the modified connection string during the initial loading of the dashboard viewer. Now create a function named onApplyConnection under the script tag and call the WCF service which we have hosted already and set the resultant encrypted string to the dashboard's object modified connection strings property. Now we have added code to call the WCF service. Build and run the PHP application to see the dashboard. We can run the batch file runsample to host the PHP application. Enter the PHP extracted directory which contains PHP web server for Windows and click enter. Now the dashboard file is rendered with the modified data from the destination Microsoft SQL Server. You can see the difference in the dashboard data by comparing the dashboard file and the application result. This is an application result. Let me open the dashboard file. So, to change the connection string from the non.NET applications, we need to create either WCF service or Web API and utilize the hosted service in the applications, as we saw an example with PHP application. You can find the online help documentation for changing data connection string for non.NET applications in this video description. Thanks for watching the video.